This is the Reverend Dr. Gilberto Rosado. Dios lo bendiga. Este es el Reverendo Dr. Gilberto Rosado. Welcoming you to another broadcast. At this hour, we have our bilingual broadcast, our teaching in English and Spanish. So we ask that you be patient as we translate live on the fly between languages. Esta es la hora que damos la enseñanza en inglés y español y pedimos que tengas pues paciencia mientras que traduzcamos de un idioma al otro. Aproveche y aprende el otro idioma. While we're at it, you can learn the other language as well. Es un beneficio de sintonizarse con nuestro ministerio. It's a benefit, an added benefit, I should add, of tuning in to our ministry. Testing 1, 2, 3. God bless you. Yeah. God bless you and welcome to our class today. Dios bendiga a todos. Bienvenido a nuestra clase de hoy. Hoy continuamos en nuestro estudio de serie de santo, el significado actual de santo. So today we continue our teaching on what is the actual meaning to holy. Today we're going to have an interesting analysis today, a little different than most that we've been having in the series. And today we're going to talk about what the difference is. We're going to analyze the differences, empirical differences between the holiness of Israel and the traditional holiness, with the term, holy as being separate for a special purpose, and the holiness according to the teachings that we've been talking about since the beginning of this series, more than 80 hours now, of the Christian church or Christianity. Vamos a estudiar hoy una clase un poco diferente del estilo típico que hacemos, que entramos en los textos y explicamos los textos. Hoy vamos a considerar historia. Hoy vamos a hacer unas observaciones entre los distintivos o las diferencias entre la santidad de Israel, el Kodesh de Israel, a través del tiempo, en el significado tradicional de la palabra, separado para un propósito especial, y la santidad de la iglesia cristiana en su historia. O sea, vamos a hacer una comparación entre los dos. Como los cristianos, la fe judía o la fe de Israel, hebrea, tiene en particularidad el hecho que hay una segunda parte a la fuerza, como se puede decir otra palabra. So it's interesting that because the Judeo, the Christianity has a Judeo beginning. So the Israel, the Jewish religion, has a second part, like it or not, historically. And so we're going to analyze what that second part is, what it has looked like. And we're going to look at what we've discovered in this series. Entonces vamos a volver a mirar lo que descubrimos en este estudio de lo que quiere decir santo en realidad. Y entonces hacer esa comparación. So we're going to look at what we've discovered in this study on the actual meaning of holy, and then make that comparative analysis between the holiness of Israel and the holiness of the Christian church, even though the Christian church has held on to the traditional meaning of holy, right? So it's like, even though they have the traditional meaning of holy, because they have it's been grandfathered in through the Jewish faith, is there a difference in the realization of the Jewish faith in the Christian environment or in the Christian experience? So vamos a ver si, aunque los cristianos mantienen lo que sea que ha sido como abuelo, en inglés llamamos algo de abuelo, quiere decir que aunque la ley cambia, civil, aunque las cosas cambian, aunque estaba el micrófono apagado. Sí, hoy es importante, no sé dónde vamos a repetir, por si acaso no oyeron nada de lo que dije. Sí, vamos a hacer comparación hoy. La comparación es entre lo hebreo con su Kodesh tradicional y el cristiano con el Kodesh tradicional, con el Kodesh tradicional. O sea, entonces vamos a ver si hace diferencia o si no hace diferencia y por qué tenía que hacer diferencia o que no importaba. So eso es lo que vamos a estudiar hoy día. So today we're going to look at the differences, because the mic was off. So we're going to look at the differences between the Jewish Kodesh and their realization of the holy things and the holy teaching, and the Christian holy things And even though the Christians maintained the same definition of holy things, of holiness, did it make a difference? And why didn't it? Or why has it? So this is what we're going to look at in today's analysis. So we'll get started on that right away. Vamos a empezar en eso y de inmediato. Okay, brethren, let's get started. We had some interruptions. It happens. We got the pause thing on this, so it's good. Tenemos algunas interrupciones hoy, pero tengo la pausa, el botón de pausa. Qué bueno que inventaron y añadieron eso a este software de grabar. So podemos seguir. So let us continue today. Now, again, we're doing comparisons. So we're gonna go through history. You gotta pay close attention. Vamos a ir a través de la historia y ponga mucha atención a lo que se va a descubrir hoy. Ahora, otra cosa que quiero advertir, hemos ya pasado 80 plus horas de enseñanza en este tema. We've covered over 80 hours now of instruction and research in this topic. So don't come and make judgments. You just stumble upon our video today and you got something to say, please, because you're not doing yourself a favor. It doesn't matter to me, but you're not doing yourself or your brain a favor. Okay. You know, we all know a lot of people want to stay ignorant. They want to hold on to whatever it is they think they know. It's just simply you're just doing it to yourself because it doesn't affect me in any way. But there is, for your information, there is more than 80 hours of research and analysis in this topic we already went through. So you can do a little search, YouTube particularly, and you will find the Holy Series and start at the beginning, because that's where the premise is encountered and explained. So you want to go there. Hemos ya pasado más de 80 horas. En YouTube está, yo creo, todo las clases de el serie de los santos están en bilingüe, así más o menos. Busca Holy en el canal de TSPCI en YouTube, entonces usted verá. Busca los más viejos, porque especialmente el más viejo, que es el primer tema, el primer análisis, y allí se habla de la premisa, o sea, el fundamento de esta serie, y allí encuentras pues el detalle de por qué cuestionamos esta palabra santo y se ve lo que Dios revela en su palabra al principio. Las cosas primeras son muy importantes. Vaya a lo primero para entonces entender de dónde viene raíz de este análisis que hacemos hoy día. All right, so today let's go into scripture first, just to give us a little background. Vamos a ir a la escritura un poco para darnos un poco de ¿cómo se llama eso? De reseña, se dice. So vamos a ir ahí. All right. So estamos tratando palabra santo con las convocaciones. This is Leviticus 23:2. We're looking at the holy with the convocation. Speak unto the children of Israel and say unto them concerning the feasts of the Lord, which ye shall proclaim to be holy convocations. Even these are my feasts. Vamos a leerlo en español. Let's read it in Spanish, as we always accustom. Just to give us a little foundation into a starting point for today's lesson. habla a los hijos de Israel y diles: en cuanto a la fiesta solemne del Señor, que proclamaréis como santas convocaciones, estas son mis fiestas. Okay, so let's go. I want to do this in the interlinear. Vamos a ver el hebreo que dice que siempre hay que analizar con el hebreo. We always have to look at the Hebrew. Again, throughout the 80 hours, we have shown you ample reasons to establish a pattern, or at least a method, that involves checking with Hebrew always. These are the feast moed of the Lord, even of the Lord, right? Jehovah Kodesh, right? Mikre. Let's see that. Mikre or Mikra? No.
Strong's H 4744. Mikra. Mikra.
Okay, I think it was neither of my renders. Mikra. All right, so it'll come to me. Don't worry. Mikra. Let's look at what that means in the Hebrew. So again, you want to look at these important words that are related. They're used with the main topic word or the main focus word, which is Kodesh, because we want to see how God is using the word. So queremos ver cómo es importante analizar las palabras en hebrea, cómo Dios lo usa en conjunto, en relación, en contexto con Kodesh. Aquí está, esta palabra está junto con el Kodesh, obviamente queriendo decir que esta cosa es Kodesh. Esto es algo Kodesh. Y al conocer algo que es Kodesh, entonces podemos ver de qué es lo que Dios está tratando de decir con que esta cosa o el otro elemento sea o evento sea Kodesh, right? So we're looking at why we're looking at these words and things and events that God is putting together, making Kodesh the adjective for these words. Or are they? Sometimes they're verbs, right? And then they get it right sometimes, right? They say to make holy, or en español hacen el verbo de Kodesh, que es para hacerlo, para santificarlo, right? Entonces esas son cosas, poquitos detalles que tenemos que darnos de cuenta que Dios lo está utilizando así. So let's look now that it loaded up. Vamos a ver qué resultó. Y aquí vemos que en el Rey Jaime, la versión del Rey Jaime, lo traducen micro como convocación. See, they used convocation 19 times. I know a lot of you don't know what convocation means, so I'm going to explain it to you. Then you have it referring as an assemblies, which is the result of the convocation, right? Then we have calling, which is what the convocation is. And then reading one time, it's a reading something, which is what's done at the convocation. So, están viendo aquí. What's interesting that you notice that this, all the different renderings have to do with the convocation itself. These are things that are done, right? So, and in other contexts, they have rendered it slightly differently for whatever reasons. We're not at those contexts, and we're not going to do that right now. But what's interesting to note in this analysis here is that that all of the different renderings of it are things done as a result of the convocations. It's all related. Unlike other words that you have, things that seem to be, very distant from from each other. So, esto es un poco diferente porque por lo menos cada versión que se utiliza en esta Biblia está relacionada con lo que llamamos la convocación. O sea que todo es cosas relacionadas. Es como decir iglesia, y en otro lado dice leer la Biblia, en otro lado dice cantar coro, y en otro lado dice oír la predicación. Todo eso se hace en la iglesia, ¿ves? Entonces esta palabra lo están interpretando de ese modo, así. Son cosas relacionadas uno con el otro, y dependiendo del contexto pues lo han traducido de esa forma, right? Pero ¿qué quiere decir esta palabra convocación? Y el primer análisis que hay que hacer, the first thing when we're looking at convocation, is to break the word up, because the words in English and in many other languages, they're made up of smaller words. Right? So the con, and those who know Spanish, con, that means with. It's Latin. Latin, con es junto, right? Es esto con el otro. So the word has to do with something being together, okay? And what is it with? This is whatever this means. It's with voca. Voca in Latin again, vocal, right? So what is vocal? This is with the voice, with vocal, meaning that what do we do with the vocal? This is the holy with the vocal. Well, what is being done? What is being done is, as it says here, as one of the one-time renderings, is that it is a calling. It is when the priests are supposed to call the people. Okay, to remind the people, and there's a difference here, right? We're going to explain that. Yes, indeed. So it is a reminder to the people. It is a calling. Now, the calling doesn't mean that they have to come, right? Which is what we're going to explain, and you'll see it in the verse. Usted va a ver en este texto, yo creo que es en esta, si no el otro, que la convocación no quiere decir siempre o cualquier vez, no quiere decir que se juntan, o sea, llamarlo a reunirse. Es solamente llamar, es solamente avisar. So this is an announcement. It's almost like an alarm clock, you know. It's like I just did a convocation before doing this recording, because right now, well, not right now, but in about half an hour from when I'm doing this recording, the Sunday teaching of last week, which is actually when I'm doing this recording, it will be shown, will be premiered on YouTube. So ahora mismo está la grabación de la semana pasada, que yo grabé la semana pasada para este domingo. Está aproximado a ser publicado en YouTube. Entonces falta media hora, pero yo hice el anuncio, puse el anuncio en Facebook, en Twitter, en LinkedIn y otras fuentes, para avisar. Lo que estoy haciendo es convocar con voz, convocar, avisar. Hey, atención, esto es lo que está pasando, esto va a suceder en media hora. Eso es una convocación. Yo he cumplido con la ley, con convocar al pueblo y a la audiencia, convocar a todos a ver esta enseñanza, right? So eso es una convocación. ¿Están dejando sus casas? No, están en sus casas, están donde estén, pero la convocación se hace. So I just did the convocation by announcing, posting on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and other social media, platforms I've posted announced the teaching that is going to start in about half an hour from this moment. So that is a convocation. Are they leaving? Are they coming together to in a church to watch me and this and that? Depending who they are, no. When I'm announcing it, I'm letting everyone know, the churches that are associated with us, whose congregations view me on the big screen in their churches on Sunday, as well as many individuals who are out in the real world. They come across the video announcement, the convocation, and then they can tune in and watch it anytime during the week, right? Or anytime in the future. But the issue is that I have made the convocation. I have issued the convocation. If I was a Hebrew priest, a priest of Israel, then I have done the convocation as instructed, to have a convocation, to announce. So that's basically what the word means. That's what a convocation is, okay? It's an announcement. It doesn't mean that they're getting together. It could be used because if a result of the calling was to have people gather together, then, then the Bible could say, well, and at the convocation, have the people read the scriptures. And obviously, that's referring to the meeting, right? That's a result of the convocation. So this is the way the Bible uses words. It uses it effectively. La palabra de Dios usa las palabras con efecto. Quizá en otra parte dice, y haga la convocación. Y a la convocación manda que la gente lee la Biblia, lee la palabra o la ley o lo que sea. Entonces, obviamente que la convocación en ese contexto quiere decir la gente reunida, o sea, la asamblea. Por eso en otro lado lo usa la palabra asamblea, ¿ok? Entonces es resultado de la convocación. So I want to impress upon you that just because a word means X, it doesn't mean that it can't mean Y or it can't mean Z. Because really it's the context that really makes that determination. Now, the Hebrew rabbi, the scholar would say, well, big news, right? You discovered America, bro. Sarcastically, obviously. But that's not the point that I'm trying to make. I mean, we know that. We understand that. That's an inherent part of Hebrew, right? But, the issue here is, what is God meaning with holy? Before even the definitions that are given by man. Because if you were watching 80 hours ago, you'll realize that God didn't give man the meaning of holy that they have or that we have. I speak in the third party because I'm not part of that group, right? But I'm being facetious. All right. So, entonces, el problema es que dice el erudito hebreo, dice, ay, qué inteligente tú eres, Rosado. ¿Quién sabía eso? Que el hebreo tiene varias definiciones, porque tú eres un genio, ¿no? Sarcásticamente. Pero ese no es el punto mío. El punto mío es que, 80 horas atrás descubrimos que Dios nos dio a Moisés una palabra nueva cuando dijo Kodesh. O sea que la palabra Kodesh ha sido asumido, o sea, adoptado como abuelo. Pero no quiere decir que eso es lo que Dios está queriendo decir con Kodesh. So, hemos pasado esos 80 horas atrás. Y la prueba lo dimos que cuando Dios lo dio a Moisés, lo dijo, Dios manifestó la definición, o sea, el significado actual, real, de su uso de la palabra Kodesh. Y hemos estado analizando a través de la escritura ese aspecto que no se encuentra en el hebreo. So, we've been studying from 80 hours back the demonstrated Kodesh, the demonstrated holy, as God used it with Moses. Now, he did not give Moses the word holy. No, God did not give man in any instance in the Bible record, the word holy. This is an interesting thing. Arguably the most important word, one of the most important words, not as important as faith. And faith is demonstrably the most important word in the Bible. La fe es la palabra más importante en la Biblia. Por ende, la prueba es, and the proof of that is, that God gives the definition for it. So important. Dios da la definición de fe en la Biblia para que usted entienda que esto es importante. And it also tells you something else when you realize that the most important word in the Bible, faith, God gave a definition for it. You got to ask why. Uno tiene que preguntarse por qué. See, this goes all into what we're talking about here. Why did God give the definition for faith? Hebrews 11:1, if you didn't know that. ¿Por qué Dios dio la definición de fe en su palabra? Hebreos 11:1. ¿Por qué? Por el problema que las palabras a través de los tiempos cambian en definición, o sea, cómo la gente lo utiliza, lo usan, lo emplean. Los diccionarios no te dicen la definición de la palabra original. Ese es el problema. Dictionaries do not give you the original meaning of words. Dictionaries only give you, by great degree, they used to, but now it's like, forget it. Now, they just give you the usage, the way people are using it today. And some of the older dictionaries, and there still could be new ones that still maintain some sensibility towards education. Some of them will see the word archaic. Algunos de ellos todavía hoy, que quizá todavía aman la educación, el entendimiento, pues entonces tienen uno de las definiciones, dice arcaico. ¿Qué quiere decir? Que ya no se usa así. Esto es viejo, esta es una definición vieja, arcaico, ay que viejo, este uso ya no se usa. Pero más veces que no, esa es la definición original de esa palabra. So, more times than not, the archaic definition is the original meaning to that word. And that's important, especially when we're reading old texts. Eso es importante, especialmente cuando estamos leyendo textos antiguos. Porque se supone que la palabra que se usó era la palabra como se usaba en aquellos tiempos, no en los tiempos nuestros de hoy. So, it just makes sense that if you're reading an ancient text, that the words used in the ancient text are the words that had the meaning that they used in the old times, in the ancient times. What the dictionary would say archaic, and maybe not even, because they don't go back that far. It's a real possibility. Hay mucha posibilidad que las palabras que usted encuentra en uso hoy no son tan antiguos, muy probablemente. So, aún el definición arcaico en realidad es una definición de quizás 200 años atrás, 300 años atrás, que no es nada en comparación con la historia bíblica, que tiene 2000 años mínimo, ¿no? 4000 años, etcétera. So, estamos hablando de antigüedad y estamos hablando de idioma que en su forma literaria, en su forma científico, profesional, técnico, no se había desarrollado todavía. ¿Okay? En aquel entonces. So, esa palabra que tuve en la Biblia no existía en el tiempo cuando se expresó lo original. So you got these other issues, like the words that we see today in the Bible weren't actually existent even in the time that the original idea, concept was uttered and then written in the ancient Hebrew or in Aramaic, in the ancient Greek. Maybe this word that we're reading in the King James Version wasn't in existence. Matter of fact, a lot of them were not existent at that time. So we're still using modern, relatively in biblical terms, modern words. And even the modern words already have archaic meanings. But they're not that archaic as the original languages of the scripture. So I hope you understand that we're talking about great distances of conceptual communication. So that's a lot of distance, and the more distance you get, the more haphazard it can easily become or has been. So así que la distancia puede causar accidentes. Con la distancia entre lo original, los conceptos originales, y entonces la traducción a una palabra casi moderna, entre los últimos 1000 años, aún 2000 años. Todavía son palabras que quizá hasta aquel entonces no se había utilizado esos conceptos, ¿no? So, tenemos distancias que afecta entonces cómo estamos entendiendo lo que dice la Biblia, lo que Dios dijo, porque todos queremos decir, Dios dijo así, Dios dijo así. Everybody wants to say that God said, and look at what God says in the Bible. The other day, someone's telling me to reread the Bible. You guys gotta be kidding me. Again, it shows a lot of irresponsibility, a lot of lack of understanding, and a lot of presumption, because what that statement means to say, the way you're reading the Bible, that's the way it is. That's the presumption that's being made, and it's so foolish and ignorant. And people don't realize. They don't want to see it. If you confront them with it, then they're defensive. Only intellectual people will say, well, let's look at this and let's examine this real possibility. Hey, it's historic. Understanding history, understanding the development of language, understanding the development of culture. These are real possibilities. They're not things to be excused away. Oh no, that can't be. It's really ridiculous. And people who think that way, they're the ones who get deceived, simply. And deceive others without knowing that they themselves are deceived. Blind leading the blind. Así que hay muchos que son decepcionados y no lo saben. Porque ellos no están mal, los demás. Ellos entienden la Biblia como ellos leen la Biblia. Yo sé que tú no lo lees. Esas son cosas de ignorante.
Porque el que sabe de la historia y del desarrollo de los idiomas que están en la Biblia, los originales, entiende que no es así de fácil leer la Biblia. Lee. Sí, ese es el problema. Todo el mundo está leyendo la Biblia. Y mira cuántas religiones hay. Todo el mundo leyendo. Es que las personas que piensan así son susceptibles a la decepción y han sido decepcionados. Y entonces quieren que otros se decepcionen. No, yo no te mando a leer Biblia. Aquí estamos mirando. Leemos juntos y yo te demuestro cómo está esto en el hebreo y las cosas que hay que ver y entender. Sí, lee la Biblia. Cualquier ley coge la mala a entender. Se equivoca. People can read the Bible. I don't tell you guys, hey, go read the Bible. I'm showing you issues that you didn't even realize when you're reading. So, for Shabbat. You guys gotta be kidding me. Ustedes tienen que tener entendimiento que, una vez vimos la palabra so, así como, ¿y qué? O sin embargo, o así entonces, en inglés. Y la palabra en hebreo era Shabbat. ¿Quién se entiende eso? Era la palabra sábado. Ese texto tenía 2 sábados. Y por uno de ellos tradujeron so y qué. Es ridículo. Entonces están mandando, lee la Biblia, lee. ¿Qué están leyendo? So again, this is the issue here. Nobody wants to see this. This video, they don't want to see it. It's too much. Este video nadie lo quiere ver porque es mucho. Ese está, yo no sé. Yeah. So they have this judgment and all this because they're right, everybody else wrong, I'm wrong. It's just, and I showed you the scripture, I showed you the Hebrew. And it's because when people are deceived, they want to continue in the deception. It can't be that I've been wrong all my life. No puede ser que yo he estado equivocado toda mi vida. This is what's happening out there, and there is no decent, honest pursuit of truth. There's only defense of your opinion. That's all there is out here. Solo hay defensa de su opinión. No hay búsqueda honesto de la verdad. Eso es lo que está pasando. So you have people that even then that you show them that they're wrong, they're defending their opinion. They refuse to see what is demonstrably, provably wrong about their belief. They refuse it. Never did God, God is always, is God a liar? Does he have any untruth about him? I mean, I think people forget who God is. Or you don't know God at all. That's the problem, right? It would be. They don't know God at all. You don't understand. Then you don't understand science, which makes it worse. Because if you had understood science, you would realize that, the laws of science are the laws of science. Things aren't what they have to be. But if you're in a religion, it's whatever you believe. It's whatever you believe. I remember the story. It really happened. A Muslim guy, not because they were Muslim, because Christians do this all the time. But for the matter of saying the truth, what actually happened. He was a Muslim, and they owned a deli. And great people. I would always go buy my lunch there and talk a little while, hang out with them. Yeah. And one time I walk in, they did that with everyone. I wasn't the only one, but there was one time they were talking to another guy I know, an engineer, and they were saying, people have a right to their belief, and that's okay. They're saying, you have your belief, we have ours. That's okay. It's all good. And so when I walk in, I heard this statement. And when I walked in, the guy was happy to see me. He said, "Isn't that right?" Because they know I'm a minister and all that. "Isn't that right, minister, pastor? Isn't that right that everyone?" I said, "What was that?" Because I had to make believe maybe I didn't hear right, because what they said. Yeah, that we have our beliefs. You have your beliefs, and that's okay. That's what. And I looked at him and I said, I went like this. No, He said, "How so? How isn't that okay?" I said, "What is 2 plus 2? And he said, 4. And I looked at him and I went. He said, "How can it be 4? Look, 2." And he went to 2. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4. And I looked at him and I went. And he said, "What is it? How can it not be 4? And he's looking at the other Christian. The other Christian at least had the sense to not say nothing. And I give him that credit, right? And then he said, "Then tell me, what do you say it is?" And I say, "It's 5. And he looked at me, "How can it be 5? Well, look, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 4. I says, "It's 5 because I believe it." And to his credit, he smiled. You see, because it isn't okay that you believe one thing and everyone else believes something. But that's not okay. See, so with that little example that I gave him, hopefully he realized that what matters is the truth. It's almost like saying that there's no need for the sun. We don't need a sun. It's just an opinion. That's a belief system, the sun. So a plant can either believe it or not believe it. It's okay. No, it isn't. The plant would die. Certain things cannot. See, so science fixes things. Science fixes your thinking, your reasoning, and then makes statements like that. It's okay for you to believe whatever you believe. To make it total nonsense. It's really nonsensical. Because that's not the way the universe works, okay? So, and you don't have to believe in God. Just understand science. I mean, if you understand science, you're pretty much you a reasonable thinker. And that's really what you need to be. Así que, di el ejemplo de cuando yo entré en una deli de los dueños de los musulmanes. Siempre hablamos y charlamos. Pues una vez yo entré y estaba hablando con otro, un ingeniero que era cristiano, o sea, yo creo que podría ser metodista, luterano, algo así, presbiteriano. Y él estaba diciendo a que está bien que tú tengas su creencia y que nosotros tengamos lo nuestro. Que eso no es problemático, eso está bien. Usted tiene derecho, dijo derecho. The word he used is that you have a right to it. So, tú tienes derecho a tener su creencia y nosotros tenemos nuestro derecho a tener nuestra creencia. Entonces me miró a mí y dijo, no es verdad así, pastor, que ustedes tienen derecho de pensar como piensan y nosotros tenemos derecho a pensar como nosotros pensamos. Entonces, no es verdad eso, me preguntó. Entonces yo le dije no. ¿Sí? Me sacudí la cabeza así, me meneé la cabeza. Y dice, ¿cómo pues? ¿Cómo? Explícame tú. Entonces yo le dije, ¿cuántos son 2 y 2? Y entonces el muchacho me mira y me dice, son 4. Y yo le miré y dije, y dice, ¿cómo? Él como se soltó. Dice, ¿cómo? 2 y 2 son 4. ¿Cómo tú me vas a decir que no? Entonces, él quizá entramos en esta sesión o el otro. De todos modos, él empezó a contar 1, 2, 3, 4. Son 4. O yo le dije, él me preguntó, ¿cómo? Explícame. Entonces yo le pregunté, mira, yo le dije, 2 y 2 son 5, le dije. Y se sorprendió. ¿Cómo? Eso es locura. Que 2 y 2, mira, 2 y 2. Y se empezó a contar los dedos, porque eso es la prueba. 2, 3, 4, son 4. Y yo le dije, son 5. Y decide, ¿cómo tú puedes decir eso? Y entonces, permiso. ¿Cómo tú puedes decir eso, pastor? Yo le conté 4, son 4, no 5. ¿Cómo tú puedes decir eso? Entonces yo le dije, 2 y 2 son 5 porque yo lo creo. Y él empezó a reír a su crédito. Y el otro también. Porque por eso le estoy diciendo que no está bien. No tienen derecho, como dice, de que creer lo que quieren creer. No está bien. Porque entonces hay error, ¿no? ¿Y qué pasa entonces? El error es error. No está bien. No dejamos a los niños brutos. Yo pienso 2 y 2 son 10. Ok, está bien, aquí está tu diploma. Eso no lo estamos haciendo hasta ahorita, ¿no? Mañana, quién sabe, pero hasta ahorita no lo está haciendo así. Eso no es la educación, eso no es correcto. Así que cuando uno tiene la mente científica, matemático, pues uno entiende que las cosas son lo que son. Hay leyes naturales, son lo que son. Y exigen que las cosas sean como deben de ser, o sea, de acuerdo a las leyes. Porque cuando algo viola la ley, pues entonces ya no existe, o no, ya deja de ser lo que era. No puede estar. Esas son las leyes naturales. Así trabaja el universo. El universo no trabaja, tú tienes derecho a su opinión. Eso así no trabaja la ciencia, no trabaja la realidad. Pero entonces, ¿cómo la gente puede exigirlo? ¿Sí? So that's the problem. The problem is that people are not realizing that they are insisting on what is not natural, what is not permitted. You see? And you yourselves in your thinking, I never had that philosophy. I'll tell you right now. Yo nunca tuve esa filosofía. La filosofía es la manera que tú analiza y reciba información y busca información o verdades. Así lo estoy usando la palabra filosofía. Okay, so yo nunca permití aceptar algo porque me gusta. Eso para mí no consta, no es la manera que yo trabajo. El universo no trabaja así. Yo soy bien, como decía, blanco y blanco y negro y negro. Yo no tengo cuando no hay sombra, no hay sombra. Okay, ahora cuando hay sombra, pues hay sombra. Yo reconozco sombras. Sombras son importantes, right? Hay que reconocer las sombras. Yo hablo de eso también. Pero cuando la cosa debe ser así, pues son así. Tú tienes gente que entonces, ¿cómo se puede evaluar la realidad si uno está llamando una manzana pera y una pera naranja? Es que no trabaja así las cosas. No, porque me gusta llamarlo así. Eso es confusión. Pero hay gente que viven así, confundidos pero no quieren confusión cuando ven televisión. Ellos quieren, cuando cambian al canal 9, quieren que sea canal 9, right? Eso sí, quieren orden alrededor, pero no orden en su vida y en su mente. Eso es hipocresía. Hay gente hipócrita. Cuando tú ves la Biblia habla de hipócrita, no solamente hipócrita es hipócrita aquí, porque quiere todo que te trabaja bien, pero tú no trabajas bien. So, you guys, there's people who live disorderly, they have disorderly thinking, and then disorderly living. But yet they want everything else to be stable. The only reason you can live disorderly because everything else is orderly. See, because the floor doesn't cave in. If the floor would cave in like you do in your emotional states, you wouldn't be able to survive. But since the floor doesn't cave in, you're free to be disordered. And this is how people go through life. You don't realize that they're being hypocrites. Because when the Bible talks about hypocrites, it's not just people talking, hypocritically. It's this too. People are hypocrites here. Because they know that 2 + 2 = 4 to pass the test, but they don't apply it in their own lives. You know how to check your math on the math test, and most of you don't. But I'm just saying, I'm giving you the credit, benefit of the doubt. But then, when it comes to your own life, you don't check the math. This is how people are living out there. Then they're telling me to reread the Bible. You guys got to be kidding. You better take your head out from where it is, because where it is, the sun ain't shining there, boy. Así que, esta gente me manda a mí a leer la Biblia, a leer otra vez la Biblia. Hay que pensar, tú tienes que sacarte la cabeza de donde está, porque de donde está, allí no alumbra el sol. Okay? No estoy hablando cosas. So anyway, yeah, I'm arrogant that way, right? But yeah, you have to tell people the truth. Hay que hablar a la gente la verdad. Porque no están pensando bien. Son bien abusadores. Abusan a la gente. And then they're abusive to people. Because they want people to follow their disorder. Porque quieren que la gente siga en su desorden. And then you're the one that's wrong. O sea, tú estás mal. Ellos están desordenados. Tú estás mal porque no estás ayudando en el desorden que tiene la vida. I'm sorry. I'm not going to help you in your disorder. Yo no te voy a ayudar en su desorden. Y eso es todo. So again, thankfully, at least the ground under your feet is not disordered. The sun in the sky came up this morning, because if it was like a lot of people, it wouldn't come up in the morning. It'll screw you bad. El sol, si fuera como lo demás gente, pues no se levantara esta mañana. Se hubiera quedado dormido. Está cansado, chico. Quedarse dormido más tiempo. Eso, así vive la gente. Pero si la naturaleza hiciera lo que como ustedes viven, estuvieran todos aquí meándose y ensuciándose. If nature would do how you guys live your life, you'll be pissing and dirtying, soiling yourselves. And that is the absolute truth. Así que anyway, let's get back to this. So we need to understand that the meaning of the words over time has changed. And that's a real thing. Las definiciones de las palabras han cambiado con el tiempo, y eso es algo bien cierto. Bien cierto. No te sientas ahí, santo, esto es... No. Busca, mi desafío, busca santo en la Biblia, busca dónde es que Dios sabe, porque es una palabra importante. Que los ángeles dicen 3 veces santo. Oye, come on. You got the angels in heaven 3 times. They say holy, holy, holy to God, and you're going to tell me that that's not an important word to know where it came from? And know what its original meaning was, or at least learn what God is showing what its meaning is. How God is using it, which is what we've done. Because the Bible will not show you the origination of the word holy. Sorry. La Biblia no dice la origen de la palabra santo. No lo dice. Pero sí, en la primera instancia, no después de un rato, no, la primera instancia, sí Dios demuestra qué quiere decir santo. So, even though the Bible doesn't give us the definition of holy, in its first appearance in the scriptures, he does demonstrate what holy means. See? And so that you can credit to God, because we're not looking at something way down in the Bible later on. No, it's the first time. And the Bible, God has this style that when he gets started, this is the beginning. He lays it out. He lays out the foundation, ladies and gentlemen. God is not I mean, we're human. He knows how we learn, how we're supposed to figure things out. The first things are foundation, aren't they? Las cosas primeras Dios sabe, Dios nos creó. Las primeras cosas son fundamental. Dios sabe eso. Son fundamental. La primera vez que Dios dice santo, ahí está la demostración. Aunque la palabra santo vino de los paganos, pero Dios da la manera en que Él lo está implementando. So even though the origin of the word holy is pagan, God is demonstrates His use of the word into Scripture. But that's not the Hebrew meaning of the word, and that is the problem here. Pero la definición de santo que hemos ingerido, se dice, inherited, la herencia que hemos heredado de los hebreos no es lo que Dios demostró, es lo que Moisés ya conocía desde Egipto, de los paganos. Punto. All right. Y también hemos descubierto que aún era en realidad de los ¿cómo se llama esa gente? No. We already discovered that it wasn't even Egyptian, the origin of the Hebrew language. It was not Egyptian. It was not from Egypt, but was from the Amorites. There you go. Era de los amoritas. Okay. So it was from the Amorites. They weren't God-fearing. They weren't Jehovah fearers. They were pagan. Los amoritas eran paganos. Y de la lenguaje, idioma de los amoritas viene el hebreo con Kadosh y Kodesh. So, the Amorites, who were a pagan nation, from there the Hebrew comes and with their Kodesh, with their holy. They were pagan. Moses heard it from God. He just carried it through. But God did make a distinctive relativeness, a related demonstration that shows what God is using holy as. So vemos que Dios usa santo, lo demuestra a Moisés o con Moisés, pero que todo el mundo suma lo previo. And it's the same thing that Moses did, the same thing that the Hebrews did, it's the same thing that the Christian church did, same thing that you all did. Each and every one of you did the same thing. You took the word as you already understood it, and that's the way you're defining it. And it's the mistake that everyone made. So eso es el error que todo el mundo está haciendo. Porque están tomando la palabra como Moisés lo tomó, lo cogió, lo sabía, como lo Israel lo cogió, los hebreos, como la iglesia, y cada uno de ustedes tomó esa palabra santo como te lo enseñaron, como te hace tiempo. Los cristianos, mira, yo conozco evangélicos. Cuando se oye la palabra santo, es la misma palabra y uso que tenían cuando eran católicos. Ellos no preguntaron, nadie preguntó. Vemos que todo el mundo está haciendo lo mismo, que es, en algún aspecto, adopción de términos, de conceptos. En otro aspecto, no cuestionan el uso de esa palabra en ninguna forma, sino que Dios dijo santo, pues entonces eso es lo que quería decir. So it's this issue that it either adopted the concepts, or even that they say, well, God used it. It's reasonable thinking. God said it, so that's what He must mean what it means, which is a wrong assumption. That's the wrong assumption. but it would be something that you would think, right? It would be something you would think without question. Because if God used it, then that must mean what it means. That must be what God is intending. The only problem with that is that God demonstrates something different. I mean, the whole process is different. And again, you'll have to see the 80-hour ago teaching so you can see it and appreciate that. So tiene que ir a la, si no lo ha visto, los primeros enseñanzas en esta serie para apreciar lo que estoy diciendo. All right, but simply what you don't need to go back there for is to realize, where did the word holy come from? And you just do a Bible search and word search, and you realize that the first time it's used in the Bible, it is with Moses at the fiery bush. Así que usted puede analizar sencillamente. La pregunta es de dónde vino la palabra kadosh, holy, santo, y ver una búsqueda de la Biblia de la palabra santo y ver que la primera vez que se usa es cuando Moisés y la salsa que el día, y que nadie cuestionó. Eso es verdad, eso tú lo puedes ver. So you can see for yourself, you can prove that to yourself by going and doing the word search and looking at the fiery bush. That's the first time, and no one questioned it. Even Moses didn't question. Okay, so that is not a proof for either. This is my case. If God is using it a different way, right? Because you have to go by the context. I mean, can't we depend on Hebrew for something? No podemos depender en el hebreo por algo. El contexto, mijo. No podemos decir que santo quería decir lo que entendía Moisés. Si el hebreo, lo primero es el contexto. You understand? Pero para eso se olvidan del contexto. So it appears that, like, when Moses is at the fiery bush, we're not going by context any longer. We just accepted how Moses accepted it, or what it meant before, and we're not going by the context at all. See, this is the inconsistency. But this is where, in the inconsistency, is where you find the room, the space for deception. ¿Sí? En la inconsistencia es donde tú ves el espacio de juego donde puede entrar la decepción. Ahí está. Usted tiene que tener cuidado de eso. And you have to be careful of that. and God provided. If it was that God just had a talk with him, just go to Egypt and get my people out. Then we wouldn't be here really today discussing the word holy at all. Because it would have been just, God did not bring us any news. He did not make any indication that holy doesn't mean what Moses had in his head. But the problem is that God did do that's the problem here, because it throws everything into question. From the first thing to the last, everything is put into way. When God tells Moses holy, this is a problem. You see, so el problema empezó con que Dios dijo santo en el contexto, en el escenario donde Dios lo dice. Y usted tiene que entender, usted tiene que ver esa enseñanza, la primera, muy importante. Okay, los primeros, el segundo, etc. Porque ahí voy amplificando un poco. So those are very important to understand that. So again, it's learning how the Word of God uses words, and the care we have to take in reading and then going into the Hebrew. It's very important. Hay que entrar en el hebreo, especially in the Old Testament, the Greek for the Greek. But in the Old Testament, you had to go to the Hebrew, just to see if if that word soul is Sabbath. Because now every time I see soul in the King James, I gotta check it, make sure it's not a Sabbath in there hidden. I gotta go check it. I just cannot now read the King James version and go and pass up a word like soul. You gotta watch it. Así que ya no más, oye, esto me hizo daño. Viendo el hebreo y viendo el rey Jaime aquí poner so y que para un Shabbat, eso fue para mí, este King James hay que verlo. Okay, so yeah, you just do the blue letter Bible just to check it. You know, everyone can do it. Todos ustedes pueden hacer esto. Go to the Blue Letter Bible. You know, make a donation there. These guys are great. Them and Bible Gateway is two. I know you give donations here and there for this and that. This is wonderful resources that you guys should be donating to. Giving a donation every year. Don't forget. No se olvide de dar una donación a estos sitios de internet que son maravillosos. Recursos importantes para la fe en mundial. No tiene que ser fe cristiana, judía. Estas son es educación. These are educational tools that really need support. And just check what it is you say that God said. Usted tiene que chequear lo que tú dices que Dios dijo. No puedes decir Dios dijo esto. Mira qué lindo la palabra de Dios. Solo está citando de español. Mira el hebreo. Go and look at the Hebrew. Don't just quote it in your language. Look at the Hebrew. So, all right, it's just qué cosa. All right, so again, let's see what it says here. Mikra, something called out. Algo. Let's see how it says it, how it renders it in Spanish. Algo llamó, dice aquí, Spanish. Algo que se llama, algo que se declara, okay? That is a public meeting, una reunión público, el acto puede ser las personas o el lugar. So it could be like a public meeting. It's called out, or in other words, someone says, "Hey, it's meeting time. Es tiempo de la reunión. Ven." Now, you see the problem. Did you catch it right off bat? Some of you smarter people caught that. You see what happened here? Usted vio lo que pasó aquí mismo, ahora mismo. Everybody say, ¿qué pasó? Porque dijo algo. See, it said, por ejemplo, una reunión pública. Sí, lo que está pasando aquí es que la definición, o sea, el énfasis que se le está dando es a la reunión. Pero el problema es que la palabra en sí no es reunión. See, the problem here is that the word itself is not a meeting. The word itself, it's construction. This is why people don't understand things. The construct of the word has nothing to do, it's not about a meeting. A meeting can result from it, but in itself, it does not imply a meeting. En la palabra en sí no implica una reunión, no es necesario. Puede ser cualquier cosa. El aviso es un aviso, no tiene que ser de reunión. Hay muchos tipos de aviso. There are many types of announcements that have nothing to do with meeting. April 15th. There is a convocation on April the 15th. What is it? Hay una convocación en el Abril 2015. It was not Hebrew, right? It's the United States of America Treasury Department. Es el tesoro de los Estados Unidos, ¿no? el día de que se tiene que reportar los impuestos. ¿Ah? Eso es una convocación, es un anuncio en general, no tiene que ser de reunión, pero aquí te está poniendo en la cabeza la definición que es reunión. Ese es el problema. So here we have a problem. You have to understand. You got to understand. This is how errors begin to get developed. They put in your mind rather immediately, they're trying to tell you that it's a public meeting when it really isn't. It's an announcement. It can be anything. It doesn't have to be a public meeting. But they resort to that very quickly. That's not needed. No era necesario. So they're already framing your thinking. This is classic deception here. I'm not accusing the people of Blue Letter Bible. They're getting these definitions, but that's the problem with definitions, ladies and gentlemen. And you looking for resources online. Y ustedes buscando recursos en línea. O oyendo de sus pastores, oyendo de su roe, de sus maestros, listening to your leaders, your rabbis, your biblical scholars, of your Christian, your books, and all that. The problem is you are not knowing exactly where they got their information from, who taught them, and with what bias. Right now here, there's a bias. But you wouldn't know that if you don't know what convocation the construct is about. Si tú no conoces la construcción de la palabra convocar, convocación, usted no te va a dar cuenta de que le están modelando su pensar, que la convocación es una reunión, cuando en sí la palabra convocación no quiere decir reunión. Es aviso. Puede ser de reunión y puede que sea no. Y más que no sea, porque hay muchas razones, muchos anuncios que hacer que no tienen que ver con reuniones. Mucho más. Hay 365 días en el año y pocos de ellos son convocaciones de reuniones. Right? Pero siempre hay convocación de otras cosas, anuncios, avisos. So, in 365 years a day, I'm getting older, right? 365 days in a year, there are many convocations, there are many announcements. I mean, just look at yourself right now. Of course, this is not ancient times. They didn't have email in ancient times. But just take it for example. How many convocations do you get every day? ¿Cuántas convocaciones usted recibe todos los días, hoy día? Usted si tiene email, usted recibe muchas. Yo tengo varios emails y recibo cientos de convocaciones diariamente. So I got various emails, like 10 minimum at least. I got more, but just 10, just to give a number out there. 10 emails. I get hundreds of emails every single day, hundreds of convocations. Those are announcements. When you open up a web page, cuando tú abres una página, una hoja del internet, hay avisos. Esos son convocaciones. There's announcements on each website you go to. These are convocations. They're announcements. How many meetings are there that you're getting invited to? I see in my email, maybe it could be on a busy day, maybe 3 convocations that are of the meeting type, depending which day of the week, right? We have a Zoom here, we have a training here, we want to get together here, right? Convocations that are meetings. But out of the hundreds I get every day, maybe 2, 3, that's it, 3%. So convocation does not mean meeting. It can result in a meeting, but it doesn't, it's not, the word itself is not say meeting. That's the whole point. It doesn't mean meeting. It means calling. So, la convocación no quiere decir reunión. Es aviso. Okay, so it's within the context. If it's a meeting, if it's a convocation about coming to church, then that is a convocation to a meeting. That is obviously what the convocation, and then those who are attending the convocation, see, because things begin to be named by the acts. The act, especially here, particularmente aquí que se está dando el nombre a la reunión por la convocación, por el acto de llamar, avisar, por lo que está diciendo Dios. Entonces eso es lo que está pasando. So that you can understand how this develops, especially in this religious context, it's because God says holy convocation. So you got to look at it. You got to realize this. Vamos a mirarlo bien para que te entienda, ¿sí? Que proclamaréis como santas convocaciones. Ahora, estas convocaciones ahora son santas. So, lo que pasa es que la palabra convocación se congela, se concreta en algo santo. Y pues entonces convocación se transforma, se muda a ser algo en sí formal. Entonces, la reunión, ¿viste? La reunión es como decir que es como poner eso es lo que resulta de la palabra santo. Estoy arreglando el pensar un poco para estar más detallado, más explicativo, porque eso no son cosas difíciles. These are things a little difficult for people to think about, because it takes a little bit more, as they claim that I do, acrobatical thinking. But the point here is that because the Bible says, God says holy convocation, that it makes the convocation a thing more than just an announcement, right? Because it's the holy convocation. The natural tendency then, because this is always to maintain it as a convocation, it becomes a thing. And now that we're at the meeting, we don't call it a meeting. No, this was the convocation. This is the holy convocation. The meaning changes because of its religious importance. In other words, the word holy put together with the convocation now gives the convocation another perspective, right? So it's kind of like a definition forged from this context, from this religious context. So what's wrong with that? Because God is not intending it to be. Dios no está intentando que la palabra convocación se muda en definición. Para hacer ahora una reunión. I'm going to prove it to you. Y te lo voy a comprobar. Te lo voy a probar. Definitivamente. Definitely. Si eres honesto. Y usted lo va a ver. ¿Okay? La convocación no es reunión. And it's only because people are reading it with that understanding. It's because then you get all this religious foundation for a lot of things. Again, holy suffers from the same treatment. Usted tiene estas ideas religiosas basado en la idea que la convocación es una reunión. Then when you go to, cuando vas a la Biblia, o sea, al hebreo aquí, usted ve que la palabra convocación, mikra, es una reunión pública. Pero eso no es lo que quiere decir la palabra. Se asocia, pero no es. Lo primero que dijo primeramente es something called out. Algo llamado, un llamar, un aviso. Eso es la palabra mikra. So the word mikra is an announcement. It is a calling. Okay? It may result in a public meeting. It's one example of it. But you'll see it here and you'll assume automatically that when you read the word convocation, it's talking about a meeting. And this is what most people do. Esto es lo que hacen la mayoría de gente. This is where the errors begin. There was no need for that. See, because it's adding words to it. It's like adding a version of the Bible. The versions of the Bible give meanings to the phrases in Hebrew and in the Greek. The problem is that that's not the Word of God. That's an interpretation. Las versiones de la Biblia son interpretaciones de la palabra de Dios, no es la palabra de Dios. ¿Sí? Entonces ese es el problema, que muchos de nosotros estamos tomando las cosas traducidas, interpretadas como palabra de Dios cuando no son. The problem here is that we're taking things that are already interpreted as being the Word of God when they aren't, because they are interpretation, they are versions. They are not the Word of God. That's not what God inspired the writer of the Word to do and to write. So this is an example of what happens. Because now we have a convocation that automatically people say, it's a meeting, it's there, you see it, it's there. They forget the first thing. Something called, let's forget that. It's a public meeting, the act, the persons, or the place, which is great distinctive things, right? They're very distinct. People, the act, the place, are distinctive things, yet they want to use the same word for all of them, right? And you see that the Bible uses, you see it in the context, it's talking about this and that and whatnot. But what you're going to see is there's no reason for it to ever be anything but this. There is no reason for it to be anything else. Well, if God is talking about the people at a meeting in the context, si Dios está hablando de la gente reunida, en ese está el contexto y dice a la convocación, ¿cómo puede ser otra cosa sino la gente? Because this is the problem. He said holy. Holy is the key. Holy is the context. La cosa aquí es que el santo, kadosh, es el contexto. That's the conditioner for convocation. Eso es la condición para la convocación. That's the conditioner. See? So, even though God is referring to the people, he's always saying it's a holy convocation, because that is the teaching. And that's what people are not, they don't get this. They don't understand. Because you're breaking up. You're trying to make sense. And this started with the Hebrews. Los hebreos empezaron con esto. Trataron de hacer sentido del hebreo, pero hicieron el mismo error que hacen los hebreos. Jaime, sus eruditos que tradujeron la Biblia al inglés, que hicieron lo mismo. Trataron de traer sentido. No percibieron la enseñanza que Dios está poniendo en su palabra. So they're not discerning, both Hebrews, both English translators, and everyone else. They're not discerning the teaching that God has placed within His Word, which is why you should never have changed Shabbat to soul. I'm sorry, but Shabbat should never be rendered as soul. It's ridiculous. The impetus to try to make the word more readable has created a diffusion of what God is teaching. El esfuerzo de hacer la palabra más comprensible ha causado que se difuga, si se puede decir, yo estoy inventando la palabra en español, se confunda, o sea, se ofusca. Estoy traduciendo del inglés a español. Ok, se envuelva, se esconda, se pierda la instrucción de Dios que está en su palabra. No en la traducción, no en la interpretación, en su palabra, como originalmente escrita. Ponlo como está escrita, por favor. You know, write the word. I've always said, why can't you just keep it the way it was? I have no problem with it. I would be a magnificent teacher of the scriptures as they were, because I know what it's meaning. Yo sí que tengo entendimiento de lo que dice lo original. Yo no tengo que cambiar palabras. I don't have to change words. I don't have to make it more readable. It is perfectly readable the way it is and understandable. La palabra de Dios originalmente es perfecto como está. Para el propósito de Dios. For the purpose of God. Para beneficiar al hombre. To benefit man. It is perfectly readable. Of course, not for a person who doesn't know how to read with comprehension and to think. Yo sé que no es así para una persona que no tiene la capacidad suficiente. Yo entiendo eso. Y no estoy diciendo que fue mala cosa hacer versiones más comprensibles para la gente común. I'm not against the effort to make the scriptures more accessible to the common man. I'm not against it. But don't be ignorant of the fact that there is structures and there are things God is teaching that you are foregoing. And the people who've been reading, for comprehension, you guys need to understand this. It's a simple thing. Don't lose your shirt on it. But you need to understand that in the original, God was giving us a lot of information, which is lost, in order to make it more understandable for y'all. Okay, it's just lost. And understand that once you understand that, then come into the more the meat. Because the Bible also talks about that. Yeah, you have milk. You have milk you got your milk and cookies. But now there comes a time where you become hungry for the meat. meat and potato. So then you have to come into the meat and potatoes. Ustedes tienen que entender que esto es carne, esto no es leche. Las traducciones de la Biblia son leche. La carne está en lo original, en el idioma original, en la forma y la estructura originales. Ahí está la carne, pero ten cuidado porque ahora estamos en lo adulto. So you got to be careful, because now when you're leaving the milk, there's no more time for milk, and for being a child, now it's time to be an adult. Okay? So are you ready? Because, you guys have problems with these videos, really. And this is just transitionary. Estos videos son transicionales. Y ustedes se piensan que son maduros en el Señor, maduros en la palabra. Estos son transicionales. La carne está, pero no están listos para la carne. Todavía son baby. Son baby. Y se mantienen ahí. You understand? You guys are staying with the baby stuff. You're not moving along. I'm here to help you move along. Yo estoy aquí para ayudarte a moverse. Santo es el Señor. All right. So first of all, you gotta develop that critical mind, and you gotta realize, wait a minute. Look at this IE. For example, this IE means what I just said. For example, it's not the meaning, but it's a possible one of 1,000 different things. It's because it's an announcement. This is really the more closest meaning is this one, the first one. La definición más actual es la primera. So, quiere decir que tú no debes de pensar que es una reunión. No, puede ser. Pero lo que es en sí es algo que se anuncia. Punto. Esto es lo que, con la manera que usted debe de leer y tratar esta palabra. So this is the way you have to really take this word. It is a holy advisement. It is a holy announcement. Now what we have said is that the holy does not mean separate and separate for a special purpose. It's obviously redundant, isn't it? Decir que esto es santo es ¿cómo se dice? Redundante, o sea, innecesaria. Porque los sacerdotes, cuando el sacerdote está llamando, avisando, ¿qué es? Cosa de aguaje. Esto es algo de Dios, es algo que si santo quiere decir santo, algo que ya debe ser santo, porque el sacerdote lo está proclamando. Pero si la convocación es un aviso, nada más, lo santo aviso, quiere decir que el aviso es lo santo, no es la reunión. It's not the meeting, but it is the announcing itself. El anuncio en sí es lo que es santo. ¿Sí? Esto es lo que es santo. Porque la reunión, pues seguro, está ya indicado en la fiesta. Si es fiesta, no, ¿cómo puede ser una fiesta que solamente está el sacerdote ahí? How can it be a feast if only the priest is there? That's not a feast. A feast in its own meaning, in its own definition, by its nature, is everyone's there. It's a party. Everyone's there. So, this is a meeting. The feast says it's a meeting. The feast says that it's gathering together. But he doesn't say holy feast. Vamos a ver, it's like people are not, they don't understand the language. Mira, ¿por qué no dice aquí Jehová? Why doesn't God say, Moed. Let's see, that's right.
Strong's H 4150. Moed. Moed.
Moed. ¿Por qué no dice Moed Kadosh o Kodesh Moed? Right? Why doesn't God say the holy feast? If the meeting is the holy thing, then why isn't it told that that meeting is Kodesh? ¿Por qué la reunión no es Kodesh aquí? No es santo. Si es que Dios está, es que Dios no lo está diciendo que es santo la fiesta. God isn't saying that the feast is holy, at least not here. Maybe someplace else he does. But here he's not saying that it is holy. Dios no está diciendo que la fiesta es santo aquí. Where is the restriction in Hebrew that you don't say holy feast? ¿Dónde está la restricción en hebreo que no se dice fiesta moed santo? Sino dice es moed. These are the feasts of the Lord, right? Then he says Kodesh Mikra, which you shall proclaim. Let's see the kara. Let's see. Let's get some.
Strong's H 7121. Kara. Kara.
Kara. Vamos a ver lo que es el kara. So again, the opportunity to say holy feast was there, was ample, wasn't done. The Hebrew goes into the holy convocation, which you already said what convocation means. Okay? The convocation doesn't have a separate meeting, you know. So which meeting is it talking about? It's not talking about any meeting, and that's the point that they're trying to show you here, that the convocation is not talking about the meeting. It's talking about the convocation, the announcement that it is holy. Of course, the announcements are related to the feast. They are the announcements to the feast. But what God is trying to say is that the announcement itself is holy. That is the holiness of this whole situation is the announcing. The announcing. It's the holy convocation. Right? These are my feasts. Estos son los moed. Okay? This is what you have to understand, is that it's the whole picture here. So kara, kara, so let's look at the meanings here. That's at least the way it's interpreted throughout the King James. The first thing is to call, cried, read, proclaimed, named, guests at some time, invited. See, the results of the kara also put here. That's the way the words are used. Renowned, bidden, preached. Okay, so that's what kara means. Vamos a ver. Entonces, so these are which you shall call to be holy calls. You see, shall proclaim to be holy callings, because the calling itself is holy. And then I said you make the call to the feast, and it says here not the feast, but it says you shall proclaim in their seasons. So it's using moed here as another word for the season of the year, which is possible. Está usando la palabra moed en vez de decir fiesta, como para decir en el tiempo del año donde cae la fiesta. So está usando la palabra fiesta para indicar el parte del año. Parte del año donde cae la fiesta. All right. So this is the issue. that the convocation, the Mikra, is Kodesh. In the two times that it uses Moed, it does not say Kodesh. So the Moeds, the feasts, are not holy. They are holy in context because the calling is where the holiness is. Entonces, para la llamada al anuncio, o sea, el anuncio es lo santo. La fiesta es santo por relación a que el llamado fue santo. Okay? In other words, that this is teaching, the proclaiming. God is telling them to teach, that these feasts are teachings, the teachings of the feast, right? And the calling to them, that the calling is the important thing, because the calling to the feast is what is the teaching, the calling, God calling. And you notice that one of the interpretations, one of the usages in the King James Version of this word moed is preach. So if you look at it, it's like the preaching in relationship to these feasts. This is what's the holy is teaching. So that whole process is not just the feast. It's not just the feast. No es sencillamente la fiesta o únicamente. It begins with the calling. Because that is the teaching. The teaching is the preaching of what the feast is coming. Prepare for the feast. This is the feast during this time. We're going to do this. And all of that is initiated by the calling. Todo eso es iniciado. La fiesta, la preparación. Viene la fiesta, tal tiempo, tal días. Esta es la preparación, esto es lo que hacemos. Esto es nuestra fiesta, es la fiesta del Señor. Todo eso, el llamar, el anuncio, el avisar, la prédica de lo que viene es santo. Es la enseñanza desde el comienzo, desde el anuncio. So God is showing that the calling is part of his teaching. The calling to the feast and the instruction, because of his teaching, then God is instructing. He's telling his priests, which are the teachers, to teach, to begin teaching. This is proclaiming. This is all is an educational engagement. Estos son empieza la educación. All right. So we got a few moments left. What I want to do, because I told you we're going to make a comparative study today, and what I want to go into is these final moments is to look into what the distinctiveness is. Next week we're going into the Shabbat, but today we're going to go into the history of education. Vamos a entrar hoy aquí, ahora en los últimos minutos que nos queda, en la educación, no la educación, sino la educación de la historia de la educación. And I want you to pay close attention. See, because the idea here, let me explain first why we were looking at the history of education. Because you see, if holy means teaching, which is what we've been postulating since 80 plus hours ago, and showing in Scripture, that means that Israel didn't get it because Moses didn't pay attention, or he just assumed he grandfathered holy from the Amorites and Egyptian usage. this it's apparent what happened. You can't say no. It's what he did. No se puede decir que Moisés no cogió, adoptó santo de los egipcios, de los amoritas, porque ahí no se ve que Moisés da énfasis en la palabra Kadosh, fuera de que Dios lo dijo. Entonces, nosotros tenemos que ver que si santo quiere decir enseñanza. Recuerde que en lo que Dios dijo, Éxodo 19:3. So let's look at Exodus 19 here. Let's open up a new one. Let's go to Exodus 19. Go to chapter 19. Vamos a ir a Éxodo 19. Let me give that a chance to load. Oh, now it came in. Okay, so let's go back. Let's go back there and take a look there. All right, Exodus 19. Vamos a mirar Éxodo 19 porque usted va a notar. ¿Qué quiere decir? Si santo es enseñanza, if holy is teaching, this makes certain observations with it. Vamos a hacer ciertas observaciones. Have a chance to go. Because you're going to notice something. Now God is trying to do something. Either he's not trying to do something with the world or he is. This is a question of what you think God is doing. And even more so, what does the Bible say God is doing? ¿Sí? So, el asunto es qué es lo que Dios está haciendo. Y no lo que tú pienses, porque pensamos una cosa, pero qué dice la Biblia que Dios está haciendo. Right? So let's look at the intent of God. Look at what his intent is. You go to Exodus 19 and you see that if they hearken unto his voice and they fulfill everything that he commands, si obedecen a Dios y cumplen con todo lo que él dice, you shall be unto me a kingdom of priests. And we already did this. We already came here and talked to you. We taught you about priests. What is their main function? Well, we just read a text where I told you that they're supposed to have proclaim the holy convocation. And we told you, we showed you that holy convocation is the announcement that is teaching. So the teaching begins in the announcement. They have to begin to teach. And it's in relation to the feasts, right? So this is the whole subject, but it begins with the advisement. So now the priests, what are they supposed to be doing? They're teaching. Again, it doesn't make sense to have a kingdom of priests and no one to be priest over. How can that be? Because that wasn't the intention. Simply, God is not intending that. God intended Israel to be priests to the world. So that the world, what is God saying? Well, if you do everything I tell you, all the world will, when the world hears the word priest, they will think of Israel. That's what this is saying. You shall be unto me a kingdom of priests. Right? And so that should have been what happened. And then it says, and holy nation. Now again, holy meaning teaching, according to our 80 plus hours of looking into this, it fits. Kingdom of priests, holy nation. Now, it also fits the other way. If you're going to take, they're holy, don't touch them, they're separate. That fits too. But then history doesn't help. And that's what we're going to show you here. Because the issue here is that God wanted Israel to be the priests of the world. They were supposed to teach all the other nations. And it wasn't to teach them to be teachers. It was to teach them the understanding that they were supposed to get if the priest had done the job of making the convocation holy. Again, teaching instead of just making it a meeting, right? So that is the issue. Instead of them just looking at the feast as a holy feast, the convocation. See, so again, this is the issue. What is God trying to do? Now let's look. If holy means teaching, then Israel was supposed to be the teacher of the world. And as teachers of the world, they should have been the ones to teach the world in all things. Ellos tenían que haber sido los maestros al mundo de todas las cosas. Y si maestros a todos, entonces el desarrollador principal de las instituciones educacionales. And then if they're teaching the world, they should have been, historically speaking, the main progenitors in Western civilization, at least, of education, of educational institutions. It should have been founded within Israel, within the nation of Israel, because they would be an holy nation, a kingdom of priests, teachers of the people, everyone else, of the Eretz. For all the Eretz is mine, God said earlier in chapter 19 of Exodus. Just read it. Ustedes leen ahí que eso es sencillo. Ellos tenían de toda la tierra de Jehová, dice Dios allí mismo en el capítulo, ¿no? Ustedes son tesoro particular, especial, pero toda la tierra es mía, dice Dios. See, so Israel was supposed to be a peculiar treasure, but all the earth is mine, God said. So in context, we were supposed to be all priests, not just a few, but all of us were supposed to be priests. To whom? All the earth is mine. A holy nation, but holy doesn't mean separate. It meant teaching nation, because all the nations of the earth is mine, or mine. So it becomes clear when we have the right understanding. Cuando tenemos el entendimiento correcto, entonces todo viene a ser claro. So let's look now at what happened. This is history now. Everything else is history, as they say. So then we can look here that education at the early times were only for the elite. Here, only royal offspring and sons of the rich and professionals such as scribes, physicians, and temple, because the religious guys were there. Remember, religions were running the game. So the priests were the educated class. You have to understand that. They were schooled, you see. These received schooling. And this is early in Mesopotamia. So this is the age-old tradition. These are the leaders of the people. They were educated in whatever was known by then was science. Or as knowledge, right? As whatever was there to learn. They're the ones who got schooled. Later still in Babylonian times, there were libraries in most towns and temples, right? Again, an old Sumerian proverb averred, he would excel in the school of the scribes must rise with the dawn. But they were the school of the who? Of the scribes. Eran la escuela de los escribas. Los gente educado en el pasado eran gente exclusivamente nobles de la casa real o del templo. Okay, so there was a social class of scribes. Era una clase social de escribas. Okay, muchos de ellos empleados en lo que era la agricultura, porque esa era la ciencia mayor, es muy importante. Alright, pero habían secretarias y abogados, o sea, personas que bregaban con leyes. Estos fueron en los tiempos semíticos babilónicos. Alright, so tenían el desarrollo hacían escritos para los estudiantes estudiar idiomas, que esto también tiene que ser que ver con lo que ahora hemos encontrado de que la morita es de origen de hebreo. This also has to do with why we or how we discovered that the Amoritic language is the parent of the Hebrew language, because we found one of these tablets that actually was made for students, so that students can learn one language to the next and it showed that the Amoritic was Hebrew, the beginning of Hebrew. It shows it right there. So that's how we know that Hebrew came from the Amorite. Now, and so they had commentary. So again, you begin to see where the education begins to start happening. Moses, why did he write the first 5 books? Because he's one of the only people in Israel that could write. Porque Moisés escribió porque era una de las personas que podían escribir. Esto era algo muy especial en esos tiempos. No todo el mundo podía. No. La mayoría de gente, dice aquí en esto, and I invite you guys to read this article in Wikipedia. It's not an authoritative educational resource, but it has a lot of information regardless. But the fact is here that you can see that only from the estimations of literacy in ancient Egypt were just 1 to 5% of the population. So 1 a 5% de la población de Egipto podía leer. Fíjate. All right. So again, la educación no era tanto. En ancient Israel, el Torah es el texto original o fundamental, y tiene mandatos para leer, aprender, enseñar y escribir Torah. Y eso que no tienen el significado de santo como enseñanza. Eso es lo que le falta. Now that you gotta understand that even with the Bible saying what it says, the Old Testament, the Torah telling them to have to read it, to repeat it to the people, this and that, still the figurations in it contained teachings, even more so, multi-dimensional teaching structure here. Estamos hablando aquí de una estructura muy compleja de educación. Lo que Dios dio, el Torah es fantástico, es inmenso, tomo de educación. Lo que pasa que la mayoría de la educación que tiene está todavía encubierto por la falta de conocer la palabra santo como debe ser conocida. And a lot of the meaning and teaching in Torah is still hidden because they don't have the right definition of holy. Because with the right definition of holy, then all of that opens up. See? So that's what wait a minute. Okay, so in any case, they had all this reading and learning and teaching and writing that Torah talks about, and still, it wasn't until in 64 AD that the high priest caused schools to be open. Think about that. No fue hasta 64 después de Cristo, el año Domini, que entonces el sumo sacerdote mandó a abrir escuelas para educar a la gente, a los niños. Imagínense cuántos años de Torah. Imagínense qué tarde, y es tarde. And this is very late. And why is this very late? Because already before, let's look for the Roman, vamos a buscar los romanos, ¿cómo tarde es esto? Porque los romanos en 350 antes de Cristo, 350 years before Christ, BC, the Romans, the Greek Roman world was already common. It was already common for children to attend schools. And the schools had various things such as arts, drawing, painting, sculpture. You see? So this is 350. That's more years than the United States has in existence at the time I'm doing this recording. Esto es más años que los Estados Unidos tiene en existencia la fecha que estoy haciendo esta enseñanza. Y ya el greco romano, las ciudades de Grecia antiguo ya tenían escuelas. Y hasta el 64 año Domini, fue como más de 414 años después de esto que fue que el sumo sacerdote mandó que se abriera escuela para los niños. Hey, you gotta be kidding. Tú tienes que entender. Tienes que entender el daño. You have to see the harm that not having the right definition of holy caused on Israel and even the Jewish folks historically. Great damage. A great failure to the promise that God intended for Israel. Una gran fallo a lo que Dios quería para Israel. I'm going to leave it here. I'll probably pick up on this very moment next week. We're going to continue on this comparison so we can appreciate what God said, what happened, and look at why and how holy in the right meaning would have made the word, the promises of God be fulfilled in and with the children of Israel. That's the thing I'm going to show you. If holy beings teaching helps Israel to fulfill its role as God intended it to be, it's a serious question here. Serious proposition. This is a question. Serious proposition. The question is, are you going to admit to it or not? Así que vamos a demostrar aquí que cuando está escrito la historia, como que sucedió lo que Dios quería para Israel, lo que Dios le dio a Israel, lo santo esto, lo santo aquello, lo que pasó en la historia. Y vamos a ver que si santo hubieran tomado el ejemplo que Dios le dio de santo en vez de lo amorita, santo amorita, pues entonces hubiera Israel cumplido con el deseo de Dios, la promesa de Dios para ellos, y hubiera sido un mundo muy distinto. But here we see a great failure. And just to be honest, we're not bashing Jews or bashing Israel. No, for goodness sakes. We're not doing that. It's human nature. All Christians made the same mistake. Todos los cristianos aquí hicieron el mismo error. No estamos criticando al judío como si estuviéramos tan inteligentes nosotros. No. Y los cristianos, iba a decir católicos, ¿cierto? Los primeros, pero los cristianos todos hicieron este mismo error. So, hasta ahora nadie está hablando, a menos que hasta que yo lo estaba diciendo. Ahora lo que sucede por ahí, va a venir otro, otro. Santo es enseñanza, usted va a ver, don't worry. Pero ustedes saben que yo fui el que empecé esto. You guys don't have to understand, I'm the one who started this. So you'll hear others come, take my stuff, whatever. It's good. It's all good. It's all for the good purpose. But at least you know I'm the original horse. Came from this horse's mouth. Time's up. God bless you. We'll continue this next week. Dios le bendiga a todos y hasta la semana que viene. Gracias por sintonizar y comparte.